The scream tore through the quiet suburban air like a siren. I was halfway down the driveway when I saw it, my 7-year-old daughter, Lily, trapped in her wheelchair, her shirt flickering with small, angry flames. Her face was twisted in agony, tears streaking down her cheeks. Behind her stood Karen Reynolds, the HOA president, the woman who had made our lives miserable since the day we moved in. Her blonde hair framed a cold, gleeful smile. In her right hand, she held a silver lighter, the flames still dancing at its tip. The sunlight caught her eyes, making them glint with something dark and twisted. "Karen, what the hell are you doing?" I roared, sprinting toward them. My feet pounded against the pavement, every muscle in my body screaming to move faster. Karen didn't flinch. "Just teaching her a lesson," she said casually, as if she were talking about a child who'd stolen a cookie. I yanked off my jacket and smothered the flames, pulling Lily into my arms. Her tiny hands clutched my shirt, trembling. The smell of burnt fabric and singed hair made bile rise in my throat. She whimpered, "Daddy, it hurts," and my chest ached in a way I'd never felt before. Neighbors began to emerge from their homes, drawn by the noise. Some gasped, others froze, unsure whether to intervene. And still, Karen stood there, lighter in hand, as if daring anyone to challenge her. "You've crossed the line," I snarled, my voice shaking with rage. She tilted her head, smirking. "Your little ramp violates HOA codes. Maybe now you'll think twice about letting her roll onto my property." It wasn't about property lines. It wasn't about the ramp. It was about power, and Karen had just shown me she'd burn a child to prove she had it. I carried Lily inside, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. The operator's voice was calm, asking for details, but my words came out in broken bursts. "My daughter, she's disabled, someone set her on fire. Outside." Karen finally stepped back, flicking the lighter closed, but her eyes stayed locked on mine, full of challenge. This wasn't just assault. This was war, and she had no idea who she had just provoked. The shriek of sirens grew louder as I paced our living room, holding Lily against my chest. Her breathing was shaky, and her skin was warm from the burns. The fabric of her shirt had melted slightly against her skin in places. Every whimper made me grip her tighter. The front door swung open, and 2 paramedics rushed in with a stretcher. One gently took Lily from my arms while the other checked her vitals. Second-degree burns. One muttered, "We need to get her to the hospital now." As they worked, Karen appeared at the threshold, flanked by Officer Daniels, the same officer who'd always seemed a little too friendly with the HOA board. She attacked me first, Karen declared before I could speak, rolled her wheelchair into my driveway, waved a stick at me, and threatened my property. I acted in self-defense. I felt my blood pressure spike. Self-defense? She's 7 years old. She can barely move her legs, let alone attack you. Daniels frowned but didn't cuff her. Instead, he asked me to give my statement at the station later. I could see Karen smirking behind him, her lighter tucked neatly into her blazer pocket. Neighbors stood at a distance, whispering. Some shook their heads at Karen's words, others just stared at the ambulance as Lily was loaded inside. I climbed into the back with my daughter, gripping her small hand. She looked up at me with glazed eyes. "Why is she so mean, Daddy?" I didn't have an answer. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and faintly of burnt fabric. Doctors worked quickly to clean and bandage Lily's burns. They reassured me she would recover physically, but emotionally, that wound was already deep. When I stepped out to call my wife, I spotted Karen's post on the neighborhood Facebook group. Reminder, keep your children in check. I won't tolerate harassment on my property. The comments were mixed, some supportive, others outraged. The system had already failed us once when she'd harassed other families without consequence. But this time she'd gone too far. I vowed right then to collect every piece of evidence I could, because Karen wasn't going to get away with this. Not again. The next morning, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Videos from neighbors had started circulating. Some showed Lily screaming as the flames caught, others caught Karen holding the lighter. But Karen had her own version of events ready. She claimed Lily had been playing with matches and that she'd taken the lighter to stop her. According to her, the flames were a tragic accident caused by the girl's own carelessness. I wanted to smash my phone against the wall, but then I noticed something. In one video, you could clearly see Karen's hand reaching toward Lily's back before the fire started. That was intentional. That was proof. I called Officer Daniels, but he brushed me off. The videos are inconclusive. We can't be sure what caused the fire. Karen has witnesses who say they saw your daughter playing with something flammable. Of course she did. She ran the HOA like a dictatorship. Her friends would swear the sky was green if she told them to. I realized I needed more than video. I needed people willing to testify, people Karen had hurt before. So I started knocking on doors. Some neighbors slammed them shut. Others spoke in whispers. A few, like Mrs. Alvarez, told me stories of Karen's cruelty, harassing her for having flowers in unapproved colors, sending fines for her grandkids' chalk drawings. One man, Mark, recounted how Karen had threatened to have his dog put down for barking too loud. He agreed to share his story as long as I promised to keep his family's name out until the right moment. By the time I returned home, I had a list of grievances that could fill a novel. But what I didn't have yet was the smoking gun, the undeniable piece of evidence that would break Karen's shield of influence. That night, while Lily slept fitfully, I sat by her bed and watched her breathe. Her small chest rose and fell under the hospital blanket. Karen had tried to destroy her spirit, but I was going to make sure she never got the chance to hurt anyone again. 2 weeks after the fire, the monthly HOA meeting took place in the community hall. I walked in with my evidence folder tucked under my arm, videos, witness statements, and a printed list of Karen's past harassment incidents. My stomach was tight with anger, but my mind was sharp. Karen sat at the head of the long table, her blonde hair perfectly styled, a smug smirk plastered across her face. The HOA board members sat beside her, shifting uncomfortably as I took a seat in the front row. When public comments opened, I stood. My daughter, Lily, is in the hospital because of this woman. I began, holding up a photograph of Lily's bandaged burns. Murmurs filled the room. And this isn't her first offense. I projected the neighbor videos onto the wall, Karen leaning in, the flick of her lighter the instant Lily's shirt caught fire. Gasps echoed through the hall. Karen tried to interrupt, but I talked over her. Mrs. Alvarez was fined for flowers. Mark's family was threatened over their dog. And now my child has burns because Karen Reynolds believes she's above the law. Karen slammed her hand on the table. You're twisting the truth. I've kept this neighborhood safe for years. Safe? I cut her off. Or under your thumb? For the first time, her smile faltered. By the end of the meeting, several neighbors openly sided with me. The board voted to investigate the incident, but I knew their wording was careful. They were still afraid of her. As I left, Karen leaned close, her perfume cloying. You're making a mistake, she whispered. I can ruin you. I smiled back. Not before I ruin you first. 3 nights after the HOA meeting, the sound of rustling outside woke me. At first, I thought it was raccoons, but then I caught the shadow of a figure moving across my lawn. I grabbed my phone and opened the live feed from my security cameras. My jaw clenched. It was Karen. She wore black from head to toe, her hair pulled into a tight bun. In one hand, she carried a crowbar. She approached Lily's wheelchair ramp, wedged the crowbar underneath, and began prying it apart. The sound of splintering would cut through the night. When she finished with the ramp, she walked to my car, crouched down, and slashed the tires with something sharp. Finally, she dumped a heavy trash bag across my porch, the stench hitting my nose even through the closed door. I hit record, ensuring every move was captured in crystal clear detail. Dialing the police, I kept my voice steady. This is John Miller. I have live video of Karen Reynolds vandalizing my property. You'd better get here before she runs. By the time Officer Daniels arrived, Karen was still on my lawn, pretending to inspect the ramp. I played the footage back for him, watching his jaw tighten. All right, he muttered, she's coming with us. Karen didn't resist, but as they led her to the squad car, she turned and smirked. "This won't stick. You'll see." I emailed the footage to every HOA board member before going back to bed. The next morning, whispers spread through the neighborhood. People who once feared her began questioning her leadership. For the first time, I saw something in her eyes when our paths crossed later. Not smug confidence, but the flicker of worry. Karen's arrest opened the floodgates. Neighbors who'd kept quiet for years began approaching me with their own stories. Mrs. Alvarez handed me a folder of letters Karen had sent her, threatening fines for unauthorized rose bushes and dangerous porch furniture. A young couple down the street showed me an email where Karen threatened to drag them through court unless they repainted their door. The most damning evidence came from Mark, the man whose dog Karen once targeted. He had recordings, voicemails where Karen's voice dripped with venom. "Vote my way at the board meeting or I'll make your life hell." I compiled everything into a digital folder, labeling each piece. The picture was clear. Karen was a predator who thrived on fear. I reached out to a local investigative reporter, Sarah Patel. She'd covered HOA abuses before and agreed to meet. When I showed her the videos, letters, and recordings, her eyes widened. "This is gold," she said, "and it's going to blow up." 2 days later, the headline hit the local news. HOA President accused of harassment, vandalism, and setting disabled child on fire. The article spread quickly on social media. Public opinion shifted overnight. People who once defended Karen now wanted her gone. But Karen wasn't finished yet, and I knew the real fight would be in the courtroom. The trial began 3 months later. The courthouse buzzed with reporters, neighbors, and curious onlookers. Karen arrived in a navy skirt suit, her hair perfectly styled, smiling like she was at a luncheon instead of facing felony charges. Her lawyer wasted no time spinning his version of events, painting her as a misunderstood community leader, claiming Lily's fire was an unfortunate accident caused by childish curiosity with matches. Then it was my turn. I took the stand, my voice steady as I described every detail: the flames, the lighter in Karen's hand, Lily's screams. I presented the videos, the security footage of her vandalism, the stack of threatening letters, and the witness statements from over a dozen neighbors. The prosecution played Mark's voicemails aloud in court. Karen's voice echoed through the room, cold and undeniable. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. When Karen was cross-examined, her composure cracked. She snapped at the prosecutor, contradicted her own statements, and glared at the jury. After 2 tense days, the verdict came back guilty on multiple counts: assault with a deadly weapon, child endangerment, vandalism, and harassment. Karen was sentenced to 8 years in prison. She was also permanently barred from holding any HOA position. Watching her led away in handcuffs, head bowed, was the closure I'd been chasing for months. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I said only one thing: no one is above the law, not even HOA presidents. Life slowly returned to normal. Lily's burns healed, though faint scars remained. She started smiling again, venturing outside in her wheelchair without fear. One evening, we rolled down the same sidewalk where it all happened. She looked up at me. "She can't hurt us anymore, right?" I knelt beside her, smiling. "Not ever again." We watched the sun set over the street, the HOA sign still standing, but this time it felt powerless. The neighborhood was ours again. And Karen? She was just another name on a prison roster, a reminder that no matter how high someone builds their walls of power, the truth can burn them down.